Joining us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times, has covered the Sixers for many years now. Tom Moore joins us live here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom, how you doing today?
All right. How are you doing, Josh?
Doing pretty good. So, big win for the Sixers on Sunday, but I want to start with what you wrote about, which is Tobias Harris. I just feel like this guy doesn't get the credit he deserves. Every time this team needed him to step up this year, he stepped up. He was scoring yesterday when nobody else was really giving them that much, and he's done it multiple times this year where he has filled the void when someone had to step up for this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sunday, Embiid only played 10 and a half minutes in the first half because he picked up 2 quick fouls in the first quarter and the third foul in the second quarter. So without those 27, first half points from Harris, they would have been in big, big trouble. I thought both he and his teammates and Doc Rivers really did a good job of taking advantage. With Washington starting 3 guards, they go real small. So he was getting guards on him and he was posting up, and scoring in mid-range, scoring, at the rim. That was, he doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. In his previous 12 playoff games, he only had one 20-point game. And that was the closeout game that they lost game 4 to Boston last year in the bubble. So, there isn't a whole lot of, postseason, numbers to work with, but he did have a very good regular season, probably his second best year. And they're going to need him. They really are, as that second consistent scorer. And then they need to figure out, can Seth Curry be the third guy one night? Can Shake Milton another night? George Hill, I thought, played really well for him yesterday and was on the court at the end of the game. This is why they got him, because he's reliable. He can guard multiple positions. He can handle the ball. He can play off the ball. He's played 148 playoff games, so nothing surprises him. But yeah, Harris was the star of the game yesterday. I don't think there's any question about that.
A lot of people talk about this, and you wrote about it yourself, about how the impact that Doc Rivers has had on Tobias, and about the fact that Doc has really put him in a position. If you could you tell that story again about what Doc told him when he was talking to him about what he was doing under Brett Brown and what he was going to do with him?
Sure. Yeah. I talked to Doc maybe 3 months ago in a one-on-one interview, and he talked about he was watching film of Tobias last year. And he noticed he was going right a lot, and Doc believes that Harris prefers to go left. So he called up Tobias, said, "What's the deal? Which way do you prefer?" And Tobias said, "I can go either way." And Doc said, "Baloney," except he didn't say baloney. He said another word.
Right.
And he said, and then Tobias said, "Well, you think I prefer to go left." And Doc said, "I know you prefer to go left." So if you notice, they have him on the right side a lot, so he can, if he's going to the middle, he uses his left hand. The fact that also that he didn't speak up and say, "Look, I'd like to go left. Why can't you run more sets for me going to the left?" Which I think, Harris should have done. And maybe he didn't want to ruffle feathers, but he had been there part of the previous season with Butler and Redick and all that. But last year, that certainly would have helped. And the coaches should have realized that he prefers to go left. If they looked at him with the Clippers when he did so well with Doc Rivers before the trade a little over 2 years ago here, he and I didn't realize it, but I don't watch it as closely, how much he prefers going left. So that's a little thing, but it's really not a little thing.
Tom Moore joining us here on the Boardwalk Hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. You can check out his latest on Tobias Harris and the Sixers win over there on Twitter, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. Tom, the other aspects of the game yesterday was the Sixers, they were really, really cold from 3. So they had to get really creative at times to generate offenses at different stretches of the game. What did you think about how Doc Rivers used his bench rotations in those situations?
Yeah, it was interesting because if he went 10 deep, but in the first half, he played Hill, Milton, Korkmaz, Thibault, and Dwight Howard. So Mike Scott did not play. He went really small with his second group. But then in the second half, he used Maxey. Maxey came in at the end of the first half, if you remember, when Curry got hurt a little bit, went to the locker room. He put him in. He had a 3-point play. The crowd loved it. So he plugged Maxey in for Korkmaz's minutes. The bench really struggled in the first half. And that's why I thought Hill had 7 points in the first half, including a 3-pointer. And Harris was the main guy, but I thought Hill off the bench really had a good feel for when they needed him to score and when they needed him to distribute. And then in the second half, the bench was a little bit better. He only used all 5 bench guys together, not very long, which I was really surprised. I thought he might only go 9 deep. I didn't think maybe Korkmaz would play. And I thought maybe that Harris and Simmons would share the 4 position, but he went really small, as I said. Maybe he'll tighten it up. I don't know. Korkmaz missed all 3 of his shots. He was 0 for 10 in the playoffs last year too, so I'm not sure if he's going to get another look. People say, well, you can experiment. It's only the Wizards, but you don't want to lose game 2 and go down to Washington. And certainly the Sixers could win at least one game in Washington. I'm not saying that, but you really want to win both these games. Put a lot of pressure on Washington to have to win 4 out of 5 to win the series. Maybe in Washington game 3 or something, maybe you experiment a little bit, but I think it's a little early to do that. I think he played it fairly straight, but I could see him tighten up that bench and maybe maybe only going 9 deep.
Some people have been wondering about his usage of Matisse Thybulle. He obviously only played 14 minutes, 0 for 2 from the field. Those were both 3-pointers. What do you think about Doc's plans for Thybulle? Because people believe, this is not my personal belief. I hear a lot of people saying when you face certain teams, like let's say the Nets, Thybulle might have to get more playing time defensively. What do you think?
I mean, theoretically, I like the idea, but you have to look at it. If you have Ben Simmons and Thybulle on the court, you can argue you're essentially 3-on-5 in the half-court offense, and that's as good as you are at the other end. That's why, and I think he's wary of that. I mean, they played together a little bit yesterday, but I think you have to watch that. He really needs to be an offensive, not a force, but just a threat. He doesn't really drive the ball to the basket. He shoots standstill threes and is not shooting very well, on them. As good a defender as he is, and the fact that the Wizards have 2 really good wings, in Beal and Westbrook, or guards, whatever you want to call them. It's a balancing act. Now, obviously, at the end of games, he'll be on the court for defensive possessions. At least if you go defense offense, then you put in Danny Green or George Hill on offense or whatever you do. Or Curry, depending on the circumstances. But it's kind of it's a fine line. You have to watch it because if, as I said, too much, in the half court. I mean, Ben Simmons was, unbelievable at the defensive end. The job he did on Beal, 15 rebounds, 15 assists, only 2 turnovers, just unbelievable. Plus 18. The only Sixer with a better plus minus was Embiid with plus 20. But then he misses all 6 of his free throws and he only scores 6 points. So on one hand, he was incredible and fantastic, but it's all part of the whole package. And that plays into here. I mean, if Rivers had a guy in that spot who he could count on to score, I think you could play Thybulle more, but you really have to be cognizant of that.
Speaking of Ben Simmons, what do we make of him at this point, Tom? You've watched a lot of basketball. You covered the Sixers for a long time. I mean, obviously going 0 for 6 from the free throw line as a professional basketball player is unacceptable. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I played high school basketball, and if you went 1 for 6 from the foul line, you were running sprints. So it's like, what do we do with Ben Simmons at this point? Because we, like you mentioned, amazing on the defensive end, 15 assists. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. But I mean, what do you do with him when he has that kind of game? It's almost like a catch-22 in how you judge him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point it's all part of the package. How terrific he is at the defensive end, and Beal's numbers. Beal was like 1 for 6 with 4 turnovers when he guarded him, and shot like 70% when he didn't guard him. But then, I mean, going to the line 3 times and getting 2 free throws each, and you could just tell his body language after he missed the first one. He just was not comfortable. And the free throws may be the reason he's timid and not attacking the rim, because he doesn't want to get fouled. He doesn't want to go to the foul line. So he will shoot, instead of going at the rim, he'll kind of go parallel to the rim and shoot these kind of fading away shots when he's got a guy 7 inches smaller than him.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure Doc Rivers is encouraging to do it. And, they might be able to get through the first 2 rounds here without him doing that. But eventually, whether it's the Nets, the Bucks, the Heat, or whoever in the Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to need him to be more productive at the offensive end, because, you just can't afford not to have him in that attack mode, which he can do with his quickness and the way he handles the ball and his size. He really can be a weapon at the offensive end. I think it's just more confidence than anything, really.
Tom Moore joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. With that being said, you mentioned they might not need him to do it in this round. What is a fair expectation of Simmons, though? Because on one hand, we remember he had that 40-point game at Utah earlier this year. But then we see a game last night. So what is the in-between that you believe is a fair expectation of Ben?
Yeah, it almost, Josh, isn't about how many points he scores. I think it's more of sort of his attitude, to attack. He did get a couple a basket or two early in the game when he was aggressive, and then he just kind of reverted back to that drive the lane and kick it out, or get 3 feet from the bucket and look for somebody to pass to, which he's very good at, but teams figure that out too. I just, that Utah game, he had 42 and was, going at Gobert. He was driving the lane. He was shooting, baby hook shots inside. And, I don't need him to, and the Sixers don't need him to score that much. It's just I think he just needs to be a threat. He needs to keep whoever is defending him honest and, help prevent doubles and triple teams on Embiid. And if he doesn't, it's a guarantee it's going to be a double team, on Embiid, which is why they have Green and Curry. I thought Curry had a big second half, and that helps Embiid certainly. But you can't afford that, not have everybody involved in the half-court offense.
You mentioned Embiid. What did you think of the Wizards' strategy of throwing about 20 different guys at him and hoping for the best? I felt like it kind of reminded me, not literally, but a little bit of, I remember years ago when Shaq would go out there and teams would have like 3-4 guys. I mean, the Sixers, they had 3-4 guys in that NBA Finals. So what do you think about the Wizards' strategy against Embiid?
Well, I mean, they don't have anybody Alex Len, Robin Lopez, Daniel Gafford. I mean, they don't have anybody who can really stop him. I mean, he scored 30 points and he only played, he only played like, I don't even know if he played 30 minutes. And he was 12 for 13 from the line. I think he was 26 of 27 from the line against them in the regular season. He just kills them, at the free throw line. The problem is that if you're the Wizards, I'm not sure what else you can do. You double with whoever else is on that side, and you hope that maybe he turns it over, or whoever he swings it to, and they make the next pass and they miss it. But you can't let him just get easy layups and dunks. So if you have to foul him, you foul him. But he's turned in such a good free throw shooter, that it's almost an automatic 2 points each time. So that is a major problem. To me, if the Wizards were going to win the series, I thought Sunday was a good day for them to steal one. With the Sixers starters were off for 9 days. They didn't play in the regular season finale a week ago Sunday. And then Embiid gets in foul trouble. It was kind of a perfect storm for them to kind of steal one. And they didn't. That the Sixers still won, even though it was close and even though they couldn't put them away late. I would think that game 2 on Wednesday night that the Sixers, would be kind of settled in a little bit better. The rust is off. And I think that, the Wizards, unless Beal comes up with a monster game or something like that, I think they're going to have a tough time, winning that game too.
A little big picture question for you with Embiid, and that is, I look around the Eastern Conference, I feel like there's really only one team that has a big man. I don't want to say he can give Embiid trouble, but he can at least make Embiid work. And that's Bam Adebayo. I feel like aside from him, I don't feel like there's almost anybody in the Eastern Conference that can really give Embiid too much trouble when Embiid is on the court and doing his thing.
Probably not, at least one-on-one. Adebayo, I guess people remember that last game in the regular season when Adebayo just outplayed him. Whatever that was, the Thursday night, I guess it was,
right.
Of the last week, where Adebayo had so much more energy and was so much more active, and Embiid, was fairly passive and just wasn't attacking and so on. I don't think that there's that much of a discrepancy. Obviously, if Embiid's one of the top 3 guys in the MVP, race. But yes, I think definitely that he is probably the one guy. I mean, you look at the Nets and the Bucks, and Lopez really isn't a physical, guy with Milwaukee. They're going to have to double team him, and the Nets will be double teaming him, and so on. So yeah, I mean, he's got a chance to have some really big games, some 30+ point games, maybe 40-point games if he plays, 35 minutes or more. So he is the guy that, he's the bread and butter. Harris is the number 2. And as I said, you just need one other guy to me, to really contribute. And the Sixers should be in pretty good shape at the offensive end.
Game 2, Wednesday night, back at the Wells Fargo Center. He is Tom Moore, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times, at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. And as all guests, he appeared here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. Tom, great stuff today. I appreciate you jumping on.
All right. Thanks a lot, Josh. You take care.